Summary and Case Study of 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. Maintaining Mental Strength, A Lifelong Journey. Amy Morin's personal experiences with loss and adversity, the sudden deaths of her mother and fiancé, and the illness and death of her father-in-law, shaped her understanding of mental strength. This book explores the 13 things mentally strong people don't do, providing a framework for readers to identify and overcome self-destructive habits. The chapters cover a range of behaviors, from dwelling on the past and feeling sorry for oneself to giving away one's power and resenting others' success. Mental strength isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending to be tough, but about managing thoughts, behaviors, and emotions effectively. It's a three-pronged approach involving identifying irrational thoughts and replacing them with realistic ones, behaving positively despite circumstances, and controlling emotions rather than being controlled by them. This book encourages readers to change their pitiful behavior and forbid themselves from indulging in pitiful thoughts. The book also encourages readers to acknowledge pitiful feelings but choose to focus on things they can control. It's about proactively helping yourself heal. It's about choosing behavior based on balanced emotions and rational thinking. It's also about being able to think positive and be optimistic. The goal is to increase resilience to stress and better equip individuals to handle life's inevitable challenges. It also entails changing your thinking. It's about being mentally and physically tough. And it's about developing healthy habits. Introduction in the conversation history. It also emphasizes that optimism alone isn't enough, balanced emotions and rational thinking are essential. Mental strength also includes recognizing how fortunate you are. Developing mental strength is not a passive process, it requires active practice and ongoing maintenance. The chapters serve as a guide to identify common pitfalls and develop coping mechanisms, not as a checklist of absolute do's and don'ts. The author stresses the importance of continual self-improvement, striving to be a little better each day. Maintaining mental strength is about incorporating strategies for reaching one's full potential into daily life. It requires ongoing work, and there's always room for improvement. It's about incorporating strategies into your daily life. Maintaining mental strength involves consistent monitoring of behavior and emotions. Recognizing self-sabotaging behaviors, such as repeating mistakes or shying away from change, and regulating negative emotions like self-pity or resentment, are crucial. This also entails looking for times when you are sabotaging your efforts and then identifying strategies for improvement. And it involves being on the lookout for negative emotions and replacing them with more realistic thoughts. It requires looking for times when you're experiencing self-pity, fearing risks, feeling resentment, or worrying about pleasing everyone. Seeking support from others is also important, whether from friends, family, or professional counselors, to aid in personal growth and change. It's hard to become your best self without help. The book concludes with examples of individuals who embody mental strength, like Jeremiah Denton, who refused to be broken by his experiences as a prisoner of war, and Lawrence Lemieux, an Olympic sailor who sacrificed his chance at a medal to rescue fellow competitors. These stories illustrate that mental strength is about living according to one's values and facing life's challenges with resilience, regardless of the outcome. It's about knowing you'll be okay no matter what. It means you'll be prepared for whatever circumstances life throws your way. It also entails doing what you think is right, regardless of whether it prevents you from reaching your original goal. Ultimately, mental strength empowers individuals to be their best selves, have the courage to do what's right, and find true comfort in who they are and what they are capable of achieving. Introduction. Understanding mental strength. Amy Morin's journey to understanding mental strength began with the sudden death of her mother from a brain aneurysm when the author was 23 years old. She had to learn to cope with the grief and loss while also continuing to live her life. A few years later, she experienced another tragedy when her fiancé, Lincoln, died of a heart attack. She had to once again face the pain of loss and find a way to move forward. These experiences led her to start thinking about the qualities that help people cope with difficult times. She realized that mental strength is not about being stoic or denying your emotions. Instead, it's about acknowledging your pain, but choosing to focus on things you can control. Morin continued to face challenges in her life, including the death of her father-in-law, Rob, after a long illness. Through these experiences, she learned that mental strength is about developing healthy habits that help you manage your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. These habits help you to avoid self-destructive patterns of thinking and behaving that can prevent you from living a fulfilling life. Morin emphasizes that developing mental strength is a process that requires practice. It's not something you can achieve overnight. The following chapters in her book are designed to help people identify unhealthy habits and replace them with healthier ones that can help them cope with life's challenges. She wants to help readers grow, improve, and strive to become a little better than they were yesterday. Chapter 1. Waste time feeling sorry for themselves. It's inevitable that life throws us curveballs. At times, those curveballs become so devastating that it seems as if you'll never recover. Tragedies like illness and death are incredibly hard to bounce back from. However, mentally strong people don't let those moments hold them back. When life knocks you down, you need to learn how to get back up. For instance, author Amy Morin unexpectedly lost her mother in 2003. Then, 2 days before the third anniversary of her death, Morin's 26-year-old husband suffered a fatal heart attack, and just 7 years later, she lost her father-in-law. With 3 deaths within a decade, Morin could have easily thrown herself a pity party. She could have let herself fall victim to her circumstances, but Morin realized that wallowing in her problems or exaggerating her misfortune would be detrimental to her mental health. That's because self-pity keeps you focused on the problem and holds you back from developing a solution. Instead, mentally strong people focus on gratitude versus self-pity. The inspiring example of Marla Runyon shows how gratitude and mental strength are important when life hands you a bad deal. At the young age of 9, Runyon was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease, a degenerative disease that affects the eyes. Eventually becoming legally blind, Runyon turned to her passion for running and went on to set world records at the 1992 and 1996 Paralympics. Runyon refused to view her disease as a disability. Instead, she viewed it as a gift that allowed her to become a world-class athlete. Many people dwell on what life takes away from them instead of being grateful for what life has given them. But did you know that gratitude can improve your physical health? The Journal of Personality and Social Psychology published a study in 2003 that found that people who express gratitude have healthier immune systems and suffer less from aches and pains. Additionally, these people also exercise more, sleep better, and overall live a healthier life than those who are ungrateful. Examples of wasting time feeling sorry for themselves. 1. Jack's parents. After their son Jack was hit by a school bus and broke both of his legs, Jack's parents couldn't stop talking about the horrible incident and recounting the details of the accident. They felt sorry for Jack and themselves, constantly dwelling on what he could no longer do and how unfair the situation was. Their self-pity prevented them from focusing on Jack's recovery and celebrating the fact that he had survived the accident. Their behavior stemmed from a desire to protect Jack, but it ultimately hindered his ability to heal emotionally and move forward. 2. Morin shares her own struggle with self-pity after the death of her fiancé, Lincoln. She acknowledges that grief can lead to irrational thoughts and a desire to dwell on the past. However, she realized that allowing herself to wallow in self-pity would prevent her from healing and creating new, happy memories. 3. Mary Deming. Mary lost both of her parents by the time she was 21 years old. After her mother died of breast cancer, Mary felt sorry for herself and was angry about being orphaned at such a young age. She buried herself in activities to avoid dealing with the emotional pain of her loss. Instead of processing her grief and moving forward, she wasted time focused on the unfairness of her situation. Chapter 2. Give away their power. How often do you say something like, "My boss makes me feel inadequate," or "My mother-in-law makes me crazy"? When you allow your boss or your mother-in-law to make you feel a certain way, you are giving others power over the way you think, feel, or even behave. No one should have power over your feelings. Instead, you should change your daily vocabulary to recognize that the choices you make are yours. Avoid phrases like "he made me mad," or "I have to work late today." Remember, only you control your emotions and choices, so say instead, "I'm choosing to stay late." You see, mentally strong people don't allow others to control how they think or act. An inspiring example of mental strength is the famous Oprah Winfrey. Raised in poverty and the victim of repeated sexual abuse, Winfrey became pregnant at the young age of 14, only for the child to die shortly after birth. Wanting to grow up and change her circumstances, she worked and studied hard, which led to a job as a TV news anchor. However, Winfrey still experienced failure when she was fired for being considered unsuitable to be on air. Had Winfrey listened to the opinions of others, she would have never accomplished all that she has today. Today, Oprah Winfrey has become a household name and developed one of the most successful talk shows to date. But how did she do it? One of the biggest factors in taking control of your feelings is forgiveness. When you hold on to anger and resentment, you allow others to limit your ability and disrupt your life. Therefore, it's important to forgive others for their transgressions and place your focus back on you. Similar to how gratitude improves your health, those who practice forgiveness see psychological benefits as well. For instance, when people forgive others, their blood pressure decreases and their hearts beat more calmly. Additionally, those who practice unconditional forgiveness are likely to live longer lives. Examples of giving away power. 1. Lauren and her mother-in-law. Lauren struggled with her overbearing mother-in-law, Jackie, who frequently made unannounced visits and undermined Lauren's parenting decisions. Lauren allowed Jackie's actions to dictate her emotional state, feeling angry and frustrated whenever Jackie was around. She gave away her power by tolerating Jackie's behavior instead of setting boundaries. This impacted her relationship with her children and her husband, as she spent her energy complaining about Jackie instead of enjoying their company. Lauren eventually reclaimed her power by setting limits on Jackie's visits and addressing her disrespectful behavior. She recognized that setting healthy boundaries was not disrespectful but essential for her well-being and her family's happiness. 2. James and his custody battle. James, consumed by his ongoing custody battle with his ex-wife, Carmen, spent a significant amount of time and energy trying to control aspects of his daughter's life that were outside his jurisdiction. He focused on Carmen's parenting style, her spending habits, and her attempts to outshine him, letting these factors control his emotions and actions. He was fixated on winning a power struggle with Carmen instead of focusing on building a positive relationship with his daughter. James ultimately learned to let go of his need to control everything and focus on being a positive role model for his daughter. He realized that his efforts to control Carmen were counterproductive and only added to his stress. 3. The author's experience with public speaking. The author recounted her crippling fear of public speaking, stemming from a fear of rejection and a perceived lack of control over the audience's reaction. This fear led to anxiety and procrastination, paralyzing her ability to prepare for a graduation speech. She realized that her fear was giving power to the audience, allowing their potential judgment to dictate her actions. To take back her power, she devised a plan with friends to ensure a positive reaction, regardless of the quality of her speech. This act of preemptively controlling the outcome reduced her anxiety and allowed her to deliver the speech, highlighting how reclaiming power can be a strategic and proactive process. Chapter 3. Shy away from change. How do you view change? Do you embrace the way the world changes, or do you find that you're simply stuck in your old ways? The way you view change can play a significant role in your mental strength. If you make excuses to avoid change, you will find that your life stays stagnant and progress will never be made. Instead, it's important to mentally embrace change, prepare for the challenges, and commit to change to find success. An incredible example of a mentally strong person who embraced change is that of Judge Greg Mathis. As a teenager, Mathis was problematic and found himself in and out of jail. However, when he learned that his mother was dying, he promised her that he would turn his life around. Once he was released from jail, he got a job at the local McDonald's and worked towards getting accepted to Eastern Michigan University. After graduation, he worked towards law school, but he was barred from working as a lawyer because of his criminal past. Many people may accept this and simply find a new path or give up. Mathis, however, didn't let this obstacle stand in his way. Instead, he sought change and found other ways to serve the city of Detroit. After working as a manager for Detroit Neighborhood City Hall, Mathis and his wife founded a nonprofit organization that aimed to help young people find work. Soon, Mathis was elected to become a judge by the people of Detroit despite his criminal past. Mathis believed that anything was possible and he embraced the change that came his way. Morin believes that once you realize that your past does not control you, you can then begin to make your way through the 5 steps of change. Break, pre-contemplation. At this stage, people become introduced to the need for change. They might not recognize the consequences of staying the same themselves and must be convinced by others. For example, a doctor might convince a pre-contemplative person to develop an exercise routine by explaining the health risks and consequences of keeping their current habits. Break, contemplation. In stage 2, a person begins to recognize the need to change themselves, but won't yet fully commit to change. For example, an employee may recognize the risk of becoming fired if he doesn't increase his sales, but he may still resist trying a new sales technique because he's not sure if the risk is worth the benefit. Break, preparation. During this stage, a plan for creating change is implemented. An entrepreneur, for example, may find himself unable to pay the bills. Therefore, he will create a plan to address the problem by deciding to sell equipment, change his marketing plan, or find a new strategy to increase revenue. Break, action. At this stage, the steps from the preparation stage are put into action. For example, a person committed to losing weight will begin to exercise and change his eating habits during this stage. Break, maintenance. During this stage, you must learn how to maintain this change long-term. It's important to monitor your progress and plan ahead for possible obstacles and pitfalls that may lead you to go back to your old ways. For example, a person who wants to maintain a healthy lifestyle must plan before eating out and before the holiday season to prevent themselves from indulging in high-calorie foods. Examples of shying away from change. 1. Richard's struggle with health habits. Richard, a middle-aged man struggling with weight and high blood sugar, sought therapy to address his health concerns. Despite understanding the risks of his unhealthy lifestyle, he initially resisted making significant changes. He was overwhelmed by the prospect of giving up his favorite foods and enduring the discomfort of exercise. He worried about the difficulty of maintaining change and feared potential failure. His initial attempts to change were too drastic, leading to discouragement and a quick return to his old habits. Eventually, through incremental changes and focusing on achievable daily goals, Richard began to see positive results, which motivated him to continue making progress. 2. Andrew's fear of moving. Andrew contemplated moving from his childhood home, a place filled with memories but no longer suitable for his needs. Despite the drawbacks of staying, he was afraid of the unknown challenges a new house might bring. He worried about potential problems, such as hidden repairs or a less desirable location. He preferred the familiar discomfort of his current situation to the uncertainty of change. This illustrates how fear of the unknown, even when the present situation is suboptimal, can lead individuals to resist change. 3. Tiffany's denial of financial issues. Tiffany, facing mounting debt, continued to indulge in excessive shopping trips with her daughters, justifying these outings as essential bonding experiences. She avoided confronting her financial reality, fearing the emotional and social implications of admitting her struggles. She clung to the familiar comfort of her spending habits, unwilling to sacrifice the perceived joy they brought, even at the risk of financial ruin. This demonstrates how denial and avoidance can prevent individuals from making necessary changes, even when the consequences of inaction are dire. Chapter 4. Focus on things they can't control. Some of us may suffer from a superhero complex in which we feel the need to fix everything. If we want something done correctly, then we do it ourselves. There are many reasons why this way of thinking is unhealthy. Not only does this increase your anxiety, but it damages your relationships and undermines trust. Simply worrying about things out of your control is a waste of energy. Therefore, it's important to let things go and stop worrying about events outside of your control. A great example of this is Terry Fox, who was diagnosed with a severe type of bone cancer at just 18 years old. As a result of the disease, Fox had one of his legs amputated and was told that he only had a 15% chance of beating the illness. However, the night before his surgery, Fox became inspired by a person with a prosthetic leg who ran the New York Marathon. After the operation, Fox began running and soon completed his first marathon. Eventually, Fox decided to raise money for cancer research by finding sponsors to fund a race of all races. Fox planned to race across Canada, running the equivalent of one marathon every day. Unfortunately, halfway through his journey, Fox was forced to quit for health reasons. His cancer had returned, and though he didn't complete his race across Canada, sponsorship money continued to pour in as people became inspired by his story. Just months later, Fox lost his battle to cancer, but he raised $23 million for cancer research in the months leading up to his death. You see, Fox didn't focus on the events that were outside his control. Instead, he focused on what he did have control over, which was raising millions of dollars for charity. Of course, changing your attitude about circumstances in life increases your health too. A 2012 study showed that those who are less controlling lead happier lives and have better relationships. Here are 3 examples, focusing on what's beyond our grasp. 1. James and the custody agreement. James, grappling with the aftermath of his divorce, became obsessed with controlling every aspect of his daughter's life when she was with her mother, Carmen. He tried to dictate Carmen's dating life, the rules in her home, and her overall parenting style, believing that by exerting this control, he could ensure his daughter's well-being and reduce his own anxiety. This fixation on things outside his control, Carmen's choices and the judge's custody decision, consumed his time, energy, and money, negatively impacting his relationship with his daughter and exacerbating his stress. He was so focused on winning the custody battle that he failed to appreciate the time he had with his daughter and missed opportunities to nurture their relationship. Only when James accepted that he couldn't control Carmen or the legal outcome could he shift his focus to what he could control, being a positive and present father for his daughter. 2. Heather's cancer diagnosis. Heather, a young mother diagnosed with mesothelioma, faced the terrifying possibility of leaving her young daughter motherless. Her initial reaction was a sense of powerlessness and fear, fueled by the uncontrollable nature of her disease. She fixated on the potential negative outcomes, the what-ifs that could rob her daughter of a mother. Recognizing the destructiveness of dwelling on these uncontrollable factors, Heather made a conscious decision to face her fears head-on. She wrote down her anxieties, acknowledging their existence but refusing to let them dominate her thoughts. By shifting her focus to what she could control, living each day to the fullest and cherishing the time she had with her daughter, Heather was able to find purpose and peace in her life. She channeled her energy into becoming a patient advocate and a motivational speaker, sharing her story and inspiring others. 3. The man in the traffic jam. Morin used the analogy of a man stuck in traffic, fuming and frustrated by his inability to control the situation. He rages against the other cars, the traffic lights, and the very concept of congestion, wishing things were different. This fixation on uncontrollable external factors, the traffic flow, the other driver's actions, only intensifies his anger and helplessness, preventing him from finding ways to cope with the situation. He is offered a choice: continue stewing in frustration or accept the reality of the traffic jam and find ways to make the best of it. This example highlights how focusing on things beyond our control often leads to increased stress and decreased well-being. By accepting what we cannot change, we free ourselves to focus on what we can control, our reactions, our choices, and our mindset, allowing us to navigate challenging situations with greater resilience and peace. Chapter 5. Worry about pleasing everyone. While someone that focuses on making everyone happy may have good intentions, pleasing everyone can negatively impact that person's mental strength. People who exhibit excessive people-pleasing qualities attempt to control how others feel, wasting time and energy because controlling other people's feelings is impossible. If you find that you worry too much about pleasing everyone, you should learn to make choices that align with your values and act accordingly, even if that means disappointing or upsetting others. For instance, Morin recalls a woman named Angela who aimed to please the men she dated by taking on personality types that weren't authentic to herself. For instance, when a man expressed he enjoyed humor, Angela would try to tell jokes. If he liked spontaneity, Angela would embellish stories of her life to make them seem more spontaneous. By trying to make herself more attractive, she began to lose her true self. In the end, she prioritized the feelings of others over her own and only said what she thought others wanted to hear. Living your life this way makes you mentally weak, whereas when you accept that you won't please everyone, you become stronger and build courage when you anticipate displeasing others. Here are 3 examples, trying to keep everyone happy. 1. Megan, the overextended people pleaser. Megan, a wife and mother of 2, sought therapy for her overwhelming stress and irritability. As she described her life, it became apparent that she was a chronic people pleaser. She felt obligated to say yes to every request, from baking for church events to babysitting for extended family members. Her fear of being perceived as selfish led her to overextend herself, neglecting her own family's needs in the process. Megan's attempts to please everyone left her feeling exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from her husband and children. Through therapy, she recognized that her constant need for approval was more selfish than setting healthy boundaries. She learned to prioritize her immediate family's well-being and practiced saying no, discovering that people were generally more understanding than she had anticipated. This newfound assertiveness decreased her stress, improved her mood, and strengthened her family relationships. 2. Angela and her chameleon-like dating persona. Angela, eager to please the men she dated, molded her personality to match their stated preferences. She would emphasize different aspects of herself depending on what she thought each man would find appealing, highlighting her sense of humor, spontaneity, or intelligence to fit the perceived ideal. This constant shape-shifting revealed a deep-seated fear of rejection and a lack of trust in her authentic self. By prioritizing pleasing others, she sacrificed genuine connection and the opportunity to build relationships based on mutual respect and acceptance. 3. Moses' difficult choice. Mose, raised in a strict Amish community, wrestled with his desire to leave. He questioned the religious and cultural norms he had always known, yearning for a life beyond the confines of his community. However, leaving meant severing all ties with his family and friends, facing their disapproval and risking their rejection. Mose ultimately chose to prioritize his own happiness and fulfillment over the expectations of his community. He recognized that living authentically meant making difficult choices, even if they displeased others. He found peace and contentment in building a life that aligned with his values, demonstrating that the courage to be true to oneself can lead to greater happiness, even when it comes at the cost of social acceptance. Chapter 6. Fear taking calculated risks. A major fear in many people is the fear of taking risks. Whether it's risks in business or chasing dreams, people fear that risks far outweigh the benefits. However, it's not enough to simply quit your job and follow your passion. Instead, big life decisions should be carefully thought out and risks should be closely assessed. If you do end up quitting that job to follow your passion, there is certainly a possibility of failure. If you fail, you may be too scared to ever take risks again. Therefore, it's important to learn how to minimize risks and figure out which risks are worth the benefits. Calculate risks by asking yourself, what are the potential costs? Benefits? How will this affect my goals? What are the alternatives? What is the best thing and the worst thing that can happen? How much will this matter in 5 years? If you write down the answers to these questions, you can review and examine them carefully to help you calculate the risks and make a decision. Of course, taking risks doesn't have to be making life decisions. We can look at the example of a famous psychologist, Albert Ellis, who was terrified of talking to women because of the embarrassing risk of rejection. After giving some thought about the consequences of rejection, he concluded that it's not that bad to be rejected, so he started talking to women. Every day, Ellis would travel to the local botanical garden and sit next to women who were sitting alone. Out of the 130 women he sat next to, 30 of them left as soon as he sat down. For the remaining women, however, Ellis would engage in conversation and then invite them on a date. Out of those 100 women, only one woman accepted his offer to go on a date. That woman didn't even show up for the date, but Ellis realized this didn't matter. Instead, Ellis discovered that he had no reason to fear rejection, and he let his irrational fear prevent him from talking to women for far too long. Taking risks and stepping outside of your comfort zone makes you stronger, so if you're looking to build your mental strength, look at what is holding you back. Perhaps those risks aren't as scary as you once imagined. Additionally, begin to practice taking risks and facing your fears. If you are scared of flying, get on that plane. If you fear to speak in public, sign up for a class and just do it. Open yourself up to new opportunities and start facing your fears. Taking the leap, examples of fear and calculated risk-taking. 1. Dale's dream of a furniture business. Dale, a high school shop teacher, harbored a long-held dream of starting his own furniture business. He envisioned the freedom and creative satisfaction it would bring, but his fear of financial risk held him back. Memories of a past failed investment loomed large, leading him to overestimate the potential for financial ruin and underestimate his ability to mitigate those risks. He focused on worst-case scenarios, letting his fear dictate his choices and preventing him from taking even small steps toward realizing his dream. Eventually, through exploration and planning, Dale began to see that he could manage the risks involved. He realized that he could start small, continue teaching part-time, and gradually build his business. This process of identifying and addressing his fears allowed Dale to reclaim his power and take calculated steps toward a fulfilling future. 2. The author's public speaking terror. The author's experience with public speaking provides a personal example of how fear can paralyze action, even when the risks are relatively low. She describes her terror at the thought of delivering a graduation speech, fueled by a fear of rejection and a perceived lack of control over the audience's response. This fear led her to procrastinate and avoid preparing for the speech, exacerbating her anxiety. Recognizing the irrationality of her fear, the author took steps to mitigate the perceived risks. She devised a plan with friends to ensure a positive reaction from the audience, regardless of her performance. This act of preemptively controlling a potential negative outcome allowed her to overcome her fear and deliver the speech. This example illustrates how fear, even when unfounded, can significantly impact our willingness to take risks. By identifying and addressing our fears, we can make more rational decisions and open ourselves to new possibilities. 3. Jet, the fearful Labrador. Amy Morin used the analogy of Jet, a yellow Labrador retriever, to illustrate how fear, even when based on faulty logic, can drive our decisions. Jet developed an irrational fear of certain types of flooring, convinced they were slippery and dangerous. This fear dictated his movements, leading him to avoid specific areas of the house and limiting his exploration. Jet's behavior highlights how fear can create self-imposed limitations, preventing us from experiencing new things and fully engaging in life. While fear can serve as a protective mechanism, it can also become a hindrance when it is based on irrational beliefs or distorted perceptions of risk. Chapter 7. Dwell on the past. There are many ways that people dwell on the past. Some ruminate about bad experiences that they believe are holding them back, while others romanticize about the good old days. Both of which keep people from enjoying the present and living life to the fullest. Your past doesn't have to haunt you, as we learn from the story of Winona Ward. Now an activist and social worker, Ward was born in a small village in Vermont where she grew up with a sexually and physically abusive father. Ward didn't tell anyone about the abuse, and at 17 years old, she got married and worked with her husband as a truck driver. She worked to free herself from her past. However, not all of her family members were as successful. She discovered later in life that one of her brothers was now abusing his own children. Ward knew she had to do something to help make a change and break this cycle of abuse. So she went back to university in Vermont and earned a law degree. She went on to found the organization, Have Justice Will Travel, a mobile legal service for families who are dealing with domestic abuse problems. In the end, Ward didn't allow her past to get the best of her. Instead, she used her experience to learn, grow, and help others. The first step in moving forward from your past is to give yourself permission to enjoy your life. A traumatic past doesn't mean that you need to suffer forever. Additionally, when dealing with negative memories, try to remember the lesson that you learned from the experience. Finally, aim to look at the situation objectively, forgive past actions, and even forgive yourself to relieve the burden of carrying those negative emotions. Living in the rearview mirror. 1. Gloria and her daughter's cycle of dysfunction. Gloria, a middle-aged woman seeking therapy for stress and overwhelm, found herself trapped in a cycle of guilt and enabling behavior with her adult daughter. She fixated on her perceived parenting failures from her daughter's childhood, constantly replaying past mistakes and berating herself for not being a perfect mother. This guilt fueled her daughter's manipulative tendencies, allowing her to take advantage of Gloria's remorse and avoid taking responsibility for her own choices. Gloria's inability to forgive herself and move forward from the past prevented her from setting healthy boundaries and supporting her daughter's growth into a responsible adult. Only when Gloria recognized that dwelling on the past was not making amends but rather perpetuating a cycle of dysfunction could she begin to shift her thinking and behavior, embracing the present and supporting her daughter's path to independence. 2. The author's struggle to let go after loss. The author shares her personal experience with grief, illustrating how the fear of moving forward can keep us tethered to the past. After her mother's and husband's deaths, she felt a strong urge to preserve their belongings as they were, believing that changing or discarding anything would diminish her connection to them. This desire to keep everything frozen in time stemmed from a fear of forgetting, a belief that moving forward meant leaving behind cherished memories. It took time and conscious effort for the author to realize that letting go of physical objects did not equate to erasing the past. She gradually allowed herself to discard items, trusting that her memories would remain vivid and precious. This experience highlights how the fear of moving on, particularly after loss, can manifest in a desire to cling to the past, even when it prevents us from fully engaging in the present and building a future. 3. James Barrie and his mother's unresolved grief. Morin examined James Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, and his mother's inability to cope with the death of Barrie's older brother. Barrie's mother became fixated on her son's childhood, believing that those years represented the pinnacle of her happiness, and that the present and future held only pain and sorrow. This romanticization of the past led her to withdraw from life, neglecting her remaining children and clinging to a bygone era. Barrie, deeply affected by his mother's unresolved grief, spent his childhood trying to fill the void left by his brother, mirroring his brother's behavior and sacrificing his own needs to appease his mother's sadness. This example demonstrates how dwelling on the past can have a profound impact not only on the individual but also on those around them, potentially perpetuating a cycle of dysfunction and preventing healthy emotional growth. Chapter 8. Make the same mistakes. Growing up, many of us are either embarrassed or even scolded when we make mistakes. We may feel embarrassed when we answer a question incorrectly, or we are punished when we bring home a bad grade. Therefore, we typically believe making a mistake is a sign of failure. However, mistakes are simply an opportunity for growth. A characteristic of those that are mentally strong is that they learn from their mistakes and take steps to ensure they don't repeat them in the future. You can look at the inspiring example of Roland Macy, who in the mid-19th century opened up a dry goods store in a small town of Massachusetts. Macy, however, made the mistake of choosing a quiet location, which meant he struggled to get customers in the door. So, he decided to take action and organized a large parade through the town. Unfortunately, the day of the parade saw such torrential rain that nobody showed up and Macy was forced to close his business. Macy vowed he wouldn't make the same mistake again, so the next time he opened a Macy dry goods store, he chose a prime location in downtown New York. The store became a huge hit and Macy's now has locations all over the world. Every year, the massive chain holds the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is one of the most popular, highly anticipated parades of the year. In the end, Roland Macy learned from his mistakes, which allowed him to create one of the most successful department store chains in the world. Morin advises that to avoid making the same mistake, study it. Ask yourself, what went wrong? What could I have done better? And what can I do differently next time? Additionally, it's important to acknowledge your mistakes and accept responsibility. In the end, you'll put yourself in control and begin building your mental strength. Examples of repeating mistakes. 1. Christie's yelling cycle. Christy, a mother of 2 teenagers, sought therapy to address her persistent pattern of yelling at her children. Despite her intelligence and self-awareness, she found herself caught in a cycle of frustration, anger, and ultimately, raised voices. She recognized the negative impact her yelling had on her children and her family dynamic, yet she struggled to break free from this destructive pattern. Through therapy, Christy realized that she lacked effective discipline strategies beyond yelling. She had inadvertently taught her children that yelling was an acceptable way to communicate, perpetuating a cycle of negativity in their home. By developing a clear plan for responding to her children's misbehavior with consistent consequences and alternative forms of communication, Christy gradually shifted her approach. She learned to identify the triggers that led to her yelling, anticipate challenging situations, and implement calmer, more effective methods of discipline. This process, while requiring effort and patience, ultimately allowed Christy to break free from her yelling cycle, improve her relationship with her children, and create a more harmonious home environment. 2. Julie's weight loss roller coaster. Julie's struggle with yo-yo dieting exemplified the frustration and self-doubt that can arise from repeating the same mistakes. Despite successfully losing weight on multiple occasions, she consistently regained the pounds she had shed, leaving her feeling defeated and questioning her ability to maintain a healthy lifestyle. This cycle stemmed from a lack of sustainable habits and a tendency to revert to old patterns once she reached her initial weight loss goal. Each time she lost weight, she relaxed her dietary restrictions and exercise routine, celebrating her success with indulgences that ultimately sabotaged her long-term progress. Through therapy, Julie gained a deeper understanding of the emotional and behavioral patterns that contributed to her weight fluctuations. She recognized the need to shift her focus from short-term goals to creating lasting lifestyle changes. By developing healthier coping mechanisms for stress, addressing underlying emotional triggers for overeating, and establishing a consistent exercise routine, Julie gradually broke free from the weight loss roller coaster, finding greater stability and contentment in her journey toward health and well-being. 3. Roland Macy's early business mishaps. Morin used the example of Roland Macy, the founder of the iconic Macy's department store, to illustrate how a willingness to acknowledge and learn from mistakes can pave the way for future success. Macy's initial attempts at entrepreneurship met with failure. His first dry goods store, poorly located and struggling to attract customers, forced him to close its doors. Undeterred, he opened a series of other stores, each venture providing valuable lessons. He learned the importance of location, effective marketing strategies, and understanding customer needs. His persistence and willingness to analyze his missteps allowed him to refine his approach, ultimately leading to the establishment of the thriving Macy's empire. This historical example highlights the importance of viewing failures not as setbacks but as opportunities for growth and learning. Chapter 9. Resent other people's success. When you see a colleague receive a promotion or see a family member buy a house you can't afford, feelings of envy may come to the surface. While this may be normal, feeling jealous of others' success eventually leads to resentment, which can distract you from your own path, making you feel as if you are a failure. And while envy is a common trait, it is far from healthy. Instead, overcome your envy of other people's success and learn how to use their success to your benefit. Let's take the example of Milton Hershey, whose employee, H.B. Reese, began building a rival candy company in the same city while still working in Hershey's chocolate factory. Hershey, however, didn't become angry or resentful. Instead, he gave Reese his full support and allowed Reese to use Hershey's milk chocolate for his experiments. Throughout those experiments, Reese created a peanut butter cup surrounded by Hershey's milk chocolate. Instead of viewing each other's company as competition, the two men celebrated their successes and used one another's power to their advantage. They supported their strengths, and in the end, they both built incredibly successful businesses. Throughout their lives, the two men continued collaborating, and after their death, the two companies finally merged. So what can you learn from the story of Hershey and Reese? When people enjoy and celebrate success, they attract other successful people, which then creates opportunities for collaboration and continued success. Examples of resentment and envy. 1. Dan's competitive spiral. Dan, a seemingly successful man with a good job, a loving family, and a comfortable lifestyle, found himself harboring a deep resentment toward his neighbors. He constantly compared his material possessions and financial status to theirs, feeling inadequate and envious of their perceived wealth and ability to afford luxury items and vacations. This resentment stemmed from his childhood experiences of poverty and bullying, leading him to believe that material wealth equated to social acceptance and a sense of worth. Dan's desire to keep up appearances drove him into debt, creating financial strain and secrecy within his marriage. He attended social gatherings feeling bitter and resentful, unable to genuinely celebrate his neighbors' accomplishments. Through therapy, Dan began to recognize the irrationality of his beliefs and the destructive nature of his competitive mindset. He realized that his pursuit of material wealth to impress others had come at the expense of his own values and happiness. He shifted his focus to spending quality time with his family and living within his means, finding greater contentment and reducing his feelings of resentment. 2. The Schadenfreude Study. The sources cite a 2013 study, Their Pain, Our Pleasure, Stereotype Content and Schadenfreude, which revealed a disturbing tendency for individuals to experience pleasure at the misfortune of others, particularly those perceived as successful. The study showed participants photographs of various individuals, including a rich professional. Researchers found that participants exhibited the most glee when the rich professional encountered negative events, suggesting that envy and resentment can lead to a sense of satisfaction at another's downfall. This study highlights the potential for negative emotions to warp our perceptions and reactions to the experiences of others, demonstrating how resentment can foster a sense of satisfaction in another's misfortune rather than empathy or compassion. 3. Peter Bookman's Graceful Acceptance. The sources present a contrasting example in Peter Bookman, a successful entrepreneur who, despite experiencing a significant setback in his career, chose to embrace the accomplishments of others without resentment. Bookman founded a company that later became a billion-dollar enterprise, but he was ultimately pushed out by investors who had a different vision for the company's future. He watched as many of his former employees achieve tremendous financial success, yet he harbored no animosity or bitterness. He acknowledged that others often questioned why he wasn't angry, but he genuinely felt happy for their accomplishments, recognizing that their success did not diminish his own contributions or potential for future success. Bookman's story illustrates the power of adopting a mindset of abundance and cooperation, demonstrating how releasing resentment can free us to focus on our own goals and find fulfillment in the achievements of those around us. Chapter 10. Give up after first failure. A major fear that many people experience is the fear of failure. Many will avoid failure at all costs, so they fear taking risks. However, almost every story of success begins with a long road of failure and perseverance. Simply put, those who succeed simply view their failures as stepping stones for improvement. One of the best examples of never giving up is, perhaps, that of Thomas Edison. One of the greatest inventors in history, Edison is best known for inventing the light bulb. However, did you know that Edison had many other inventions that were complete failures? There was also an electric pen and even a ghost machine. Of course, you've probably never heard of these, that's because they were absolute failures. However, Edison didn't view his unsuccessful inventions as failures. Instead, he saw them as learning opportunities, and each one was just one step closer to success. Research suggests that hard work is more important than talent when it comes to success. For example, people who practiced consistently for 10 years and never gave up honed their skills and eventually became better than those who seemed naturally talented. This held true when it came to chess players, athletes, musicians, and visual artists. After 20 years of hard work and commitment, individuals with seemingly no talent could reach high levels of success and achieve world-class standards. Failure is simply a part of becoming a success and is a sign that you are being challenged. You can choose to overcome failure, but how? Begin by creating a plan to learn from your failures and to avoid repeating them. Additionally, you should prepare to fail. A lot. If you get used to failure, it no longer becomes frightening and you're likely to continue working hard and eventually find success. Examples of giving up after first failure. 1. Susan's unfulfilled potential. Susan, a young mother seeking therapy for a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction in her life, discovered a recurring pattern of giving up after encountering initial setbacks. Despite longing for a more fulfilling career, she had abandoned her dream of becoming a teacher after failing a few college courses years earlier. This initial failure solidified her belief that she wasn't college material, leading her to dismiss any possibility of pursuing higher education. This pattern extended to other areas of her life. When she failed to make her high school basketball team, she quit playing sports altogether. When she regained weight after dieting, she gave up on her efforts to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Through therapy, Susan began to recognize the impact of her all-or-nothing thinking and her tendency to view failure as a reflection of her inherent abilities. She explored alternative paths to achieving her goals, discovering that online college courses could provide the flexibility she needed to balance her family responsibilities with her educational aspirations. By challenging her limiting beliefs and embracing a more growth-oriented mindset, Susan took the first steps toward reigniting her passion for teaching and pursuing a career that aligned with her values. 2. The fixed mindset trap. Morin emphasized the concept of a fixed mindset, which refers to the belief that our abilities are innate and unchangeable. Individuals with this mindset tend to view failure as a confirmation of their limitations, leading them to shy away from challenges and avoid situations where they might not excel. This fear of failure often stems from a belief that success is determined by inherent talent rather than effort and perseverance. This perspective can be particularly damaging, as it prevents individuals from developing new skills, embracing growth opportunities, and reaching their full potential. The sources contrast this with a growth mindset, characterized by a belief that our abilities can be developed through dedication, hard work, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Individuals with a growth mindset embrace challenges as opportunities for learning and view setbacks as stepping stones on the path to success. 3. Dr. Seuss's path to publishing success. Morin offers an inspiring example of perseverance in the face of repeated rejection in the story of Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss. Geisel's first book was rejected by over 20 publishers, a discouraging experience that could have easily led him to abandon his writing aspirations. However, he refused to give up on his dream, continuing to refine his craft and seek opportunities to share his unique storytelling style with the world. His persistence eventually paid off, as he went on to publish 46 beloved children's books, leaving an indelible mark on generations of readers. Dr. Seuss's journey highlights the importance of resilience, determination, and a willingness to embrace failure as an integral part of the creative process. Chapter 11, Fear Alone Time. Many days, you are likely surrounded by noise. If you live in a big city, for example, your commute to work is filled with the noise of public transportation or even the sound of the radio in your car. Once at work, you may engage in conversations, have meetings, etc. There isn't much downtime where your life is filled with complete silence. So when we get home from work, how do you cope? Many seek to maintain those noise levels by turning on the television. They aim to fill those uncomfortable silences, but when you fill your life with noise, you miss out on a powerful opportunity. Research shows that spending time alone quietly results in renewal, rejuvenation, inspiration, and reflection. Avoid drowning your thoughts with technology or sounds. Instead, build your mental strength by designating 10 minutes each day to do nothing but be with your emotions. During these 10 minutes, you can think about your life goals and determine if you are on track to achieving them. You can also use the opportunity to think about new goals or dreams and use visualization techniques to imagine the life you want to have. Don't forget these thoughts by writing them all down in a journal. Additionally, try implementing small daily habits like turning off the radio in the car or the television when you aren't watching. Or perhaps try going on a walk without your phone. These small daily activities have shown to decrease both anxiety and depression. Becoming mindful raises awareness and causes you to accept yourself at the moment. You can even take your mindfulness a step further and turn to meditation to become comfortable in silence. Studies have shown that meditation positively alters the structure of the brain by regulating both cognition and emotion. Even more, meditation has been proven to have positive effects on those who struggle with breathing difficulties, tumors, insomnia, chronic pain, and cardiological problems. Learning meditation and mindfulness increases both your quality of life and helps you become comfortable with solitude. Examples of fear of alone time. 1. Vanessa's restless mind. Vanessa sought counseling at the recommendation of her doctor, hoping to find relief from her persistent sleep problems. She described a constant state of mental activity, her mind racing with thoughts and worries even when she attempted to relax. This inability to unwind stemmed from her deeply ingrained belief that productivity and busyness were paramount, leading her to fill every moment of her day with tasks, social engagements, and a relentless pursuit of professional success. The concept of spending time alone seemed foreign and unproductive to her. Through therapy, Vanessa began to understand the importance of giving her mind a break, recognizing that her constant mental activity contributed to her sleep difficulties. She gradually incorporated brief periods of solitude into her daily routine, experimenting with journaling, meditation, and mindfulness exercises. These practices, initially uncomfortable for her, eventually provided a sense of calm and clarity, allowing her to process her thoughts and emotions more effectively. She discovered that allowing herself time to simply be rather than constantly do improved her sleep quality, reduced her stress levels, and enhanced her overall well-being. 2. Societal pressures and negative associations. Morin point out the negative connotations surrounding solitude in modern society. The glorification of busyness, the pressure to maintain a packed social calendar, and the readily available distractions of technology contribute to a widespread aversion to spending time alone. The concept of solitude is often associated with loneliness, isolation, and even mental instability. These negative perceptions, reinforced through media portrayals and societal expectations, can make individuals feel guilty or anxious about carving out time for themselves. The sources challenge these assumptions, arguing that moderate amounts of alone time can be beneficial for mental and emotional health, fostering creativity, self-awareness, and a sense of inner peace. 3. The benefits of embracing solitude. More present evidence suggesting that those who fear alone time miss out on valuable opportunities for personal growth and rejuvenation. Studies have shown that solitude can enhance creativity, increase productivity, improve empathy, and promote overall well-being. By creating space for quiet reflection, individuals can gain a deeper understanding of themselves, their values, and their goals. The sources advocate for the intentional cultivation of solitary practices, such as meditation, mindfulness, and journaling, as tools for calming the mind, reducing stress, and fostering a sense of inner peace. They encourage individuals to view alone time not as a punishment or a sign of social inadequacy but as a valuable investment in their mental and emotional health. Chapter 12. Feel the world owes them anything. Many children nowadays grow up with parents praising them for every small success. Of course, it's natural for parents to put their children on a pedestal. However, when parents fail to teach their children to accept responsibility, those children grow up to become entitled and believe the world owes them something. You can look at the example of Ethan Couch, who in 2013 killed 4 people while driving under the influence. At the time, Couch was a teenager living in Texas with wealthy parents who coddled him rather than teaching him responsibility. Therefore, his lawyers actually argued in court that Couch suffered from affluenza, a condition in which he was too privileged and therefore couldn't take responsibility for his actions. Shockingly, the lawyer's defense worked and Couch simply received probation and a rehabilitation sentence versus prison time. However, it's not just wealthy parents who teach their children this sense of entitlement. You, too, have probably found yourself giving advice to your friends that sounds like, "Don't worry, something better will come your way," or "You deserve something good to happen after everything you've been through." Instead, you should focus your advice on what your friends can do for themselves rather than simply expecting the universe to give them something. Mentally strong people refuse to believe the world owes them anything and focus on giving, not taking. Activist Sarah Robinson, for instance, was diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was just in her early 20s. During the year and a half that she battled cancer, she spoke with many cancer patients and realized that many drove hours a day to receive their treatment. She knew she needed to help, so she ended up founding an overnight house near the medical facilities. Despite Sarah's death just a year and a half after her diagnosis, Sarah's house continues to house those that need a place to stay after treatment. Examples of expecting immediate results. 1. Marcy's quick fix mentality. Marcy, seeking therapy for a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction in her life, exemplified the struggles of someone who craved instant gratification in all aspects of her endeavors. She had a history of abandoning self-help books, quitting therapy prematurely, and giving up on new hobbies or exercise routines if she didn't experience immediate, transformative results. Her impatience extended to her marriage, where she'd periodically attempt to become a perfect wife but would quickly lose motivation if her efforts didn't lead to instant marital bliss. This pattern of seeking quick fixes left her feeling unfulfilled and frustrated, as she failed to recognize that lasting change requires sustained effort, patience, and a willingness to tolerate discomfort and setbacks along the way. Through therapy, Marcy began to understand how her unrealistic expectations and her aversion to delayed gratification were hindering her progress. She gradually shifted her mindset, focusing on setting smaller, more achievable goals, developing strategies to manage her impatience, and celebrating small victories along the way. This shift allowed her to approach her goals with renewed energy and a greater sense of control over her life. 2. The 2-second patience threshold. The sources highlight research by Ramesh Sitaraman, a computer science professor at UMass Amherst, that demonstrates the alarmingly short patience threshold of individuals in our technology-driven world. Sitaraman's study found that people will abandon an online video if it doesn't load within 2 seconds. This finding underscores how accustomed we've become to instant access to information and entertainment, leading to a decline in our ability to tolerate delays or invest time and effort in pursuits that require patience and perseverance. The sources argue that this expectation of immediacy can be detrimental to our well-being, hindering our ability to engage in activities that require sustained effort, such as building meaningful relationships, pursuing long-term career goals, or developing healthy habits. 3. The overnight success illusion. Morin debunked the myth of overnight success, exposing the hidden years of effort and perseverance that often precede widely recognized achievements. They offer examples of businesses like Twitter, Apple, and Amazon, which are often perceived as instant successes but actually endured years of struggle, experimentation, and financial uncertainty before achieving widespread recognition and profitability. These narratives challenge our tendency to focus on the end result without acknowledging the years of hard work, setbacks, and incremental progress that paved the way for success. By understanding that true achievement rarely happens overnight, we can develop more realistic expectations for our own pursuits, reducing our risk of discouragement and increasing our willingness to persist through challenges and temporary setbacks. Chapter 13. Expect immediate results. Patience is certainly a virtue when it comes to finding success. However, many people become frustrated when success doesn't happen right away. This can be proven through a study completed in 1972 that looked into how successful people were at keeping up with their New Year's resolutions. Turns out, 25% of participants abandoned their resolutions after just 15 weeks. In a study in 1989, that number went down to just 1 week. So why can't we maintain our resolutions? First, we tend to set unrealistic expectations, which makes us more likely to quit when those expectations aren't met. Next, we must accept that change is not easy, that it will take hard work and dedication to reach your goal. Additionally, avoid creating a fixed deadline to reach your goal. It's nice to have an approximate idea, but when we fail to reach a goal in the predicted 8 weeks, for example, we get discouraged and give up. If something that is supposed to take 8 weeks actually takes you 12, 20, or 50 weeks, you need to be okay with that too. Success won't come immediately, and even progress is not always easily recognized. Improvements might be well hidden, so it's important to continue working hard even if you can't immediately see the benefits. In fact, good things might actually come to those who wait. Examples of expecting immediate results. 1. Marcy's futile search for instant happiness. Marcy, a woman grappling with a persistent feeling of dissatisfaction, sought therapy with the hope of finding a quick fix for her unhappiness. She epitomized the struggles of an individual caught in the allure of instant gratification, expecting rapid transformations in all areas of her life. This mindset led her to abandon self-help books, quit therapy prematurely, and give up on new hobbies or exercise regimens if they didn't yield instant, dramatic results. Her impatience even seeped into her marriage, where her efforts to be the perfect wife were short-lived, dissolving as soon as marital bliss failed to materialize instantaneously. This constant pursuit of quick fixes left her feeling frustrated and unfulfilled, blinding her to the reality that lasting change demands sustained effort, patience, and acceptance of inevitable setbacks along the way. Through therapy, Marcy began to recognize how her unrealistic expectations and her aversion to delayed gratification were sabotaging her progress. Gradually, she shifted her perspective, learning to set smaller, more attainable goals, manage her impatience, and appreciate the significance of small victories. This shift empowered her to approach her goals with renewed vigor and a heightened sense of control over her life. 2. The allure of overnight success. The sources dismantle the misconception of overnight success, revealing the years of dedication, perseverance, and often unseen struggles that underlie widely celebrated accomplishments. They cite examples of renowned companies like Twitter, Apple, and Amazon, often perceived as instant triumphs, which, in truth, endured years of trials, experimentation, and financial uncertainty before achieving widespread acclaim and profitability. The founder of Twitter, for instance, dedicated 8 years to developing mobile and social products before the platform's emergence. Similarly, Apple's first iPod underwent 3 years of development and 4 iterations before its sales truly surged. Amazon, too, navigated 7 years without turning a profit. These narratives underscore the misleading nature of focusing solely on the end result, neglecting the years of relentless effort, setbacks, and gradual progress that paved the path to success. By acknowledging that true achievement rarely materializes overnight, we can cultivate more realistic expectations for our own endeavors, mitigating the risk of discouragement and bolstering our resolve to persevere through challenges and transient setbacks. 3. The pitfalls of short-term thinking. The sources emphasize that expecting immediate results can lead to a myopic focus on short-term gains, undermining our ability to plan for the future and make sound financial decisions. The allure of instant gratification often manifests in our approach to investments, where the desire for immediate returns can overshadow the wisdom of long-term planning. A 2014 Retirement Confidence Survey revealed a startling statistic: 36% of Americans had less than $1,000 in savings or investments. While economic factors undoubtedly contribute to this trend, the craving for instant gratification also plays a significant role. The reluctance to allocate funds to long-term investments stems from the desire to enjoy the immediate benefits of spending rather than embracing the concept of delayed gratification for future financial security. Chapter 14. Conclusion. Mentally strong people refrain from feeling sorry for themselves. They never give their power away to others, they embrace change and they avoid worrying over things they can't control. They understand that pleasing everyone is impossible and they aren't afraid to take risks. Of course, they calculate their risks carefully before jumping fully in. They also avoid dwelling and romanticizing the past. They never make the same mistake twice, and they celebrate other people's success rather than resenting them. Additionally, successful people never give up in the face of failure. They face fears of being alone, and they don't feel as if the world owes them anything. Lastly, successful people never expect immediate results and they understand that success doesn't come overnight. So, if you're serious about becoming mentally strong, you should begin by monitoring your behavior, paying attention to your feelings, and examining your thoughts. By looking inward, you can determine where your weaknesses lie and work on strengthening yourself and your mind. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and please remember to subscribe to receive notification of upcoming recordings. See you in next video.